everyone, it's me, Roli, back with another pile of books. I really got a lot out of doing my last reading vlog. Over the past few years, I mean, being an adult and working full-time and having other hobbies meant I wasn't reading very much, and it kind of really bummed me out. Historically, I've been a very, very prolific reader. Mostly that comes of being very socially awkward as a teenager and not really having friends for a while, but you know. Even though there's logical reasons in lifestyle and personality that have led to me not reading as much, it made me sad. And so this reading vlog thing that I've started doing has really actually given me like a bit of purpose and structure in my reading, and while part of me's kind of annoyed that I need that, apparently I do. It's been really good for me, so yeah, I'm back here with another stack of books to read and to review them as I go. If you watched my bookcase cleaning vlog, which should be linked up there, I think I'm gesturing to the correct side, if you watched that vlog, you would have seen my massive TBR shelf and just how many books I have acquired but not read. So this time, rather than buying any new books, I actually shopped my bookcase and came out with a pile of books which are all books that I have bought new. That's the connecting theme between these books. They are also all fantasy/sci-fi, but that's just me as a genre reader. So I was just going to give you a quick introduction to the books and then get reading and reviewing. Starting with Remarkable Creatures by Tracey Chevalier. Now, this is the exception in the pile. This is like a historical fiction. It's not actually a fantasy or sci-fi, but I don't know, in my brain, historical and fantasy kind of go together sometimes, because I'm like, it's the past, it's so different from real life. But that's just me kind of being a bit of a dingbat. Anyway, I bought this one from Kmart because it sounded interesting and it was $5, and it still sounds interesting, and I'm looking forward to actually reading it. This is one that has, like, been in my backpack several times over the years, because I've had it for a couple of years, and I've, you know, taken it places with me when I'm, like, catching a train, and I've never actually started reading it, but now is the time to shine! Then we have The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix. I mean, it's Garth Nix. I'm a massive Garth Nix fan, and he releases something new, I'm pretty much gonna buy it and read it, and this one is gonna be interesting, I think. Then I've got another one from Kmart, which I also mentioned in my cleaning vlog, which is A Whole New World, A Twisted Tale by Liz Braswell. Took me a while to find the author. I looked for the author on the front cover and it just says Disney. So this is the If the Bad Guy Won retelling of the Disney story. There was a whole series of them at Kmart. I mean, it's definitely a young adult book, but I like young adult books sometimes, and it just sounded fun. Whether it's gonna be fun or not remains to be seen, but hey, why not give it a try? Now, the next two books, again, if you're referencing my bookcase cleaning vlog, you're gonna be like, those weren't there. Yes, I did go ahead and buy two more books. In my defense, I had good reasons / James enabled me. Anyway, the first one I got is The Silver Bullets of Annie Oakley by Mercedes Lackey. Look, it's a new Mercedes Lackey Elemental Masters book. There is no way I am not buying it and reading it, and also, yeah, spoiler alert, this is gonna be the first book I read out of this pile because at time of filming I've had it for 2 days and have not read it yet, and I'm a little bit like, I want to eat it! Because yes. I love Mercedes Lackey. Like, I've heard her work described as being like popcorn fantasy, and I think that's very accurate. Like, especially this series, it's not the most in-depth or anything, but boy, they're fun. Now, the reason why I bought that Mercedes Lackey book is because I was on Book Depository buying a copy of Iron Widow. Oh dear, I'm probably gonna butcher pronunciation, I should really practice these things beforehand, by Xiran Zhou. I'm really sorry. Anyway, she is a fabulous YouTuber, actually, and that's why I discovered her books in the first place. I'm gonna link to her channel up there, and again, I hope to goodness I'm gesturing to the correct side. You might know her for doing the, like, things that are culturally right and wrong with Mulan, is I think how she initially went viral, but she's got a fabulous personality, and I've wanted to get Iron Widow since it came out, but with my massive TBR, I was like, rrr. But then James and I were watching her recent video on talking about Turning Red, and she had a little bit of a spiel about her books in there, and James is like, why haven't you bought her book? And I'm like, I'm trying to be good and not buy books, and he's like, go buy her book, and I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously our dynamic is not as bossy and submissive as that sounds. But I will take any excuse to buy books, and James is often James is the better one out of the two of us about supporting the little guy. I mean, even though with her level of YouTube popularity, she's probably not that much of a little guy, but still, supporting people who we think deserve to be supported. Like, behind me, all the commissioned art on this wall is James. He bought me that, he bought that, he said we had to buy those, he commissioned that. It's like, yeah, the man's good at that. Anyway, sorry, segue. I am super excited for Iron Widow. Again, I believe it's a young adult novel, but it sounds really cool, and I really like the author as a sort of internet personality, so very, very keen to read this. And last but not least, Phasma. Or is she Phasma? I forget how you meant to pronounce her name. Anyway, Phasma, written by Delilah S. Dawson. It's a Star Wars novel, what more can I say? I bought this one a few years back when, oh geez, I can't even remember the names of The Last Jedi. I bought this one after The Last Jedi came out. And you know how I remember the new Star Wars movies' names? Because Mark Hamill made that joke, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, from his nap. That's how I remember the names. It's kind of embarrassing because as a teenager I was a massive Star Wars fan. Like, massive Star Wars fan. And now I'm like, I don't remember what most things are called. Once I was having a conversation and I forgot who Twi'leks were. I was like, the people with the colours and the head thingies. James was like, Twi'leks? And I'm like, yes. And then I felt sad and like I had to hand in my nerd cred. I mean, that might have not been a conversation with James. For the ease of the anecdote, let's say it was James. But yeah, it was embarrassing, let me tell you. But anyway, I do still like Star Wars, though not with quite the burning passion I did as a teenager, and so I am kind of keen to read yet another book from the EU, even though after the Disney ownership everything's all weird and and I'm still kind of attached to the old EU, and I'm kind of a bit grumpy about stuff being decanonized, but whatever. It should be a good book, and hey, if it's not, another good thing about this series is it's giving me the courage to DNF books, do not finish, because, I mean, obviously I can not finish them on my own, but if I don't finish it and I'm just reading it on my own, I just put it back in the bookshelf, whereas when I'm doing this vlog series, I actually, because I do want to report back to you about the books, I do actually sort of sit and think and go, am I gonna finish this? Yes, no, and sort of think about my reasons for it, and I don't know, it's making me feel more in control of my writing. Not writing, the other one, reading. Making me feel more in control of my reading, even though I shouldn't really need YouTube videos for that, but oh well. That's the pile of books I'm going to be working through for this second reading vlog. I hope you're enjoying this reading vlog, you know, thingamathing I'm doing. I certainly am. So, I mean, to an extent, I don't really care if you are or not. I mean, I do care because I want you to be entertained. That's the whole point of putting it on YouTube. But, like I said a couple of times in this intro, weirdly enough, vlogging things has actually been great for my personal motivation and stuff like that. So I'm gonna keep doing it, even if these are like my least viewed videos, which, so far anything to do with books kinda has been. You guys like the cosplay and Lolita stuff, anything else, eh? Oh, I'm not complaining, it's just amusing to me. Anyway, I am talking way too much for this intro, so I am gonna go probably devour that Mercedes Lackey book in the course of 2 days and report back. When I said I was gonna finish this book in 2 days, I didn't mean it literally, but that is what happened. I smashed this in 2 days. I mean, admittedly, it's a fairly small book as far as books goes, but still, haven't read a book that quickly since well, since the last Mercedes Lackey book came out. Shoot me. However, despite me reading it so quickly and thoroughly enjoying it, The Elemental Masters is really one of my favorite things. These are popcorn, these are comfort, these are delight. It's like a warm hug in the form of a book. Despite that, this is definitely one of the weaker ones in the series, and as a book overall, I'd give it like 3 stars. It's, you know, objectively not the greatest. However, as I said, I really loved it. Despite my unashamed love of Mercedes Lackey, I will admit that especially in her more recent works and particularly in the Elemental Masters series, it's pretty sloppy There are mistakes and repetitions and just contradictory bits within the book, and even in this one. In the blurb, it says, blah blah blah, main character meets a woman called Giselle, and I'm like, oh cool, Giselle, that was the main character From a High Tower, which is another book in the series. And then we got introduced to that character, and the character was called Frida Kate, and she wasn't Giselle. Like, I spent a good quarter of the book being pissed off because I'm like, excuse me, you're retconning all of Giselle's story, none of this makes sense. And then I'm like, no, the book actually never said it was Giselle, it's just the blurb said it was Giselle. So basically, I don't know who her editor is these days. Whoever they are, they have not been doing a good job for about 5 books in this series. But at the same time, I really enjoy it. These books bring me a great deal of pleasure, so I'm willing to, like, forgive the fact that they're not actually very good. However, for the purposes of this review, yeah, like I say, 3 stars probably, because, you know, an enjoyable read, but not the best quality. First of all, apologies for the audio in this segment. There is a thunderstorm going on out there. Not much rain, but a lot of thunder, and I'm impatient and I don't want to wait, so we're just gonna deal with the audio. This morning, I finished reading Iron Widow by Xiran Zhou. And I think I got the pronunciation right on the name this time, and I also got the pronouns right, so yay for research, seriously. Memo to future me and anyone who's watching, just do a few minutes of research, you'll be slightly less embarrassed by being unable to pronounce people's names. But anyway, enough rambling about me. This book was great. In quick summary, I would give it like 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason it loses any points for me is the writing style was a little clunky for my taste, just didn't sort of really tick the boxes, and sort of genre-wise I'm not as into YA, and I was a bit itching for a little more complexity and development, while at the same time appreciating that it actually really was very fast-paced and you really did just rocket through everything. It was not what I was expecting going in, necessarily. Like the blurb, it's one of the, I don't think this is a spoiler, but this is one of those books where the blurb tells you, covers like the first this much of the book, and then the rest of the book is all the rest of the plot, and I personally really enjoyed it. It was, yeah, it was fast-paced, it was interesting, and it really read like an anime, which I know was a big amount of the influences on this, and you can really tell it. I thought it was really good, I really enjoyed it. Definitely a keeper, definitely going in the bookshelf, gonna reread it probably in 6 months or so, and definitely looking forward to book 2, because when I say it's like an anime, it also had a very anime-esque ending, if you know what I mean, so very keen for the sequel. Who's read a book? Not me, because I've read 2 books, woohoo! Double whammy, but we'll start with this one. The Left-Handed Booksellers of London was absolutely wonderful. 5 stars, no complaints, I loved it. To me, this felt like Garth Nix being completely true to form. The tone felt right, the characters felt right, this sort of fast-paced but not speeding along too much, the teenage protagonist being thrust into a world of magic while coming of age, a sort of unexpected but inevitable romance. It was just really good, and especially because I haven't been the hugest fan of his last few books, I was actually a little apprehensive, but reading this felt like reading Sabriel when I was like 11 or whenever I first read it. This felt absolutely perfect, and I am so happy. The reading this book did make me realise something about Garth Nix as an author, which is he does actually write about quite a lot of graphic and grim stuff. Like, in this you do have at least one, well actually no, several. You have lots of characters dying on the page, sometimes in ways that are not particularly great, and they are, you know, emotional moments, but he never revels in darkness. It's always treated fairly lightly and matter-of-factly in a way that actually reminds me kind of Neil Gaiman. I'm seeing parallels these days with Garth Nix and Neil Gaiman and just sort of their approaches to things, because I don't quite know why. It's this sort of like modern fairy tale feeling where there is darkness, but there is good, and as long as you are strong and good, you'll overcome the darkness, but the darkness is also freaking weird sometimes. Actually, I think that's what I did like about this, is it did have a weirdness that I feel some of his more recent works, especially like the Old Kingdom ones, he's gone very much into the world building, which is fantastic and really, really cool, but at the same time it leaves you not having the sort of sense of grandeur and mystery that, like, Sabriel, when it was a standalone, had. Because when you know everything that's going on, it's less, you know, fantastical. And yeah, this was brilliant. Like, 10 out of 10, recommend, 5 stars, thank you Garth Nix, I loved it. Then we get into Remarkable Creatures. This book, like, really good. Like, I'd say, you know what, I would probably objectively give it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is based off real life events. We do actually have records of the 2 main characters, and as the author herself says in the sort of author's note at the end, that does kind of limit what the author can do with it, because while she also has taken some creative liberties, she is also limited by the actual verifiable historical facts, which does mean that it doesn't quite have the narrative structure and pacing that, you know, if it was fully fictional, it would have. So yeah, it's an odd book. It's a very good book, like, I enjoyed it, and especially once I got about 2/3 of the way through, I could hardly put it down. It was a bit of a slog in the middle, but I think it's also because this is not my genre. Like I said in the introduction, it is a historical fiction. I'm obviously more into fantasy and sci-fi overall, so not entirely my genre, and, you know, it's sort of period drama stuff is... I just don't like drama, I guess is the whole thing. I want rollicking fun and adventures. I don't want interpersonal drama and people fighting and feeling sad. It's just, you know, I'm not necessarily the primary target audience for this. But having said that, it was absolutely fascinating. Again, given that it is based on history, the reading about people in, like, the Regency era discovering fossils, and obviously in this day and age we're like, oh yes, the dinosaurs existed, there was extinction events, blah blah blah, but when these people in stodgy old England with whatever archbishop or whatever who's like, the earth is 6,000 years old, and that was sort of very much the done thing, the believed thing, that's how the world was for these people. Fossils were kind of scary, man. And so it was a very, very interesting read. Like, I would recommend it, but for me personally, I'm probably not going to keep it because I don't see myself rereading it. But having said that, that's purely a fact of I'm not the target audience, it's not really my style of book, but it was a really enjoyable read, and it's one of those books that I'm really, really glad I have read. Now it is time for the final update of this read and review vlog. Got my last 2 books, and yeah, let's just get into it. Phasma. Whatever. I will confess, I'm not too into current Star Wars. Like, Rogue One was amazing. Andor recently blew me away. But overall, I'm a little sketchy. So with this one, it was good. Don't get me wrong. It was well written, it was narratively good. But because I don't care about modern Star Wars, I stopped reading about, yeah, I don't know, probably about a quarter of the way through. Like, I just put it down for a couple of days, and then when I picked it up again, or went to pick it up again, I just went, I don't care. I don't want to finish reading it. So I'd honestly probably have to give this one 3 stars. Like, it was not a bad book. It's just, if you're not into modern Star Wars, you're not gonna probably get much out of it, and in a sense, that makes it not the best novel, because a good Star Wars novel will transcend whether or not you give a shit about Star Wars, and this one, unfortunately, didn't. But on a slightly more positive note, I did read the entirety of A Whole New World, A Twisted Tale. This one was both what I expected as a sort of a dark Disney retelling. It's still very G-rated in a lot of ways, but it's also surprisingly freaking brutal. Like, there's a lot of death and torture and maiming in this, way more than I expected. yeah, I'm not really quite sure what to say. Like, for what it is, it was quite good. Like, I enjoyed it. I read the whole thing. Probably give it like a 3.5 stars. It's, like, it wasn't great, but it was definitely good. And in a sense, it's exactly what it says on the box. So, even though it still did have like a Disney-esque happy ending and all of that, and like, you know, very family friendly in the there's no sex or swearing way, but not family friendly in the there's torture and death way, because yay, standards. Oh, sorry, sideways rant aside, yeah, it was pretty good. Not gonna keep it because I don't have any interest in rereading it, but solidly not a bad book. With those two books reviewed, that is the end. Wow, that was a really crap click. That is the end of this read and review vlog. As I said in the last one, and I think earlier on in this one too, don't quote me on that, it's been a while since I filmed the last update, I'm really enjoying this. These vlogs are really helping me keep on track with reading, and I'm really getting a lot out of it. I love reading, it's a big part of my identity. I actually saw an old friend from school recently, like, who I haven't seen in 12 years, and I looked at my bookshelves and he went, "Ah, it's good to see you're still reading a lot." And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is good that I'm reading a lot. I mean, a lot being subjective, I haven't read that much, but regardless, I'm loving this vlog series, so there will be more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these books. I'd love to hear book suggestions. Just seriously, talk books to me in the comments, because I like talking books, man. I really like talking books. Anyway, enough rambling, enough has been said already, but thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, bye bye!